Can't believe I woke up this morning wondering if my daddy would loan me his overcoat. And here it is just past midnight. I've already robbed a railroad train. I'm sitting in a rocking chair chatting with none other than Jesse James.
Yeah, it's a wonderful world.
Oh! What's this? Oh yeah, because I was real agitated this morning. I was wondering if I would know you or Frank, tell you all apart. And so I had this clipping that described you both. Want me to read it?
Go on.
Well, I gotta find it. Hold on. Here. Jesse James, the youngest, has a face as smooth and innocent as a schoolgirl. The blue eyes, very clear and penetrating, are never at rest. His form is tall and graceful and capable of great endurance and great effort. Jesse is lighthearted, reckless, and devil-may-care. There's always a smile on his lips.
All right.
Well, yeah, then just Frank, that's nothing, and then... Oh, you know what I got right next to my bed? Is The Train Robbers, or A Story of the James Boys by R.W. Stevens. Many's the night I stayed up with my eyes open and my mouth open, just reading about your escapades in the Wide Awake Library.
They're all lies, you know.
Of course they are.
You don't have to keep smoking that if it's making you bungee.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. Yeah, huh? So I've been meaning to read this article for a while now. I don't remember seeing it when it first came out, and this was back in, August of 2014. Damn, time has just been flying by, but I was aware of this idea of gamer, the word gamer, being something akin to being a member of the KKK. I remember seeing tweets where there were these weirdos talking about anyone who refers to himself as a gamer is a ratsy. And even then, I was much more SJW adjacent at the time, but even then, I was like, what are you talking about? Anyone who refers to him or herself as a gamer is talking about the fact that they play video games. What do the ratsies have to do with it? And I know people were mad at Gamergate, but even then I was like, what does that have to do with all gamers? Somehow, I didn't see this particular article, or maybe I heard of it, but since I wasn't invested in Gamergate, I didn't care at the time, but it's popped up again recently, maybe like a month or two ago. And the title was what grabbed me, and I guess it was probably the reason why someone brought it up again in the first place. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. And it's like, oh really? Gamers are over.
How about new?
So I've been meaning to read it and do a video on it to show how these women came into the space and argued for the destruction of the Western gaming industry by telling these publishers and studios that they don't need to cater to their fan base and how stupid that is. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. But this article is even worse than that. It proves what all of us anti-woke people out here have been saying for years now, that this isn't about marginalized groups and making games for them. It's about destroying male spaces. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. Game culture, as we know it, is kind of embarrassing. It's not even culture. It's buying things, spackling over memes and in-jokes repeatedly, and it's getting mad on the internet. It's not even a culture. She's the one who called it a culture, only to then turn around and say it's not a culture. That's because feminists and activists labeled gaming as a culture so that they can come in and change it. Because if you just call it what it really is, a hobby, you'd think some of these devs and some of these studios would have enough sense to push back and go, well, our audience likes it, so take it up with them if you don't like men playing video games. Calling it a culture allows them to criticize it and complain that it has an effect on society, as if it's touching everyone's lives, when it isn't. So, this article was written by the execrable Lee Alexander. I remember disliking her even when I was more SJW adjacent, when I had all these SJW mutuals, including Carolyn Petit. But I remember disliking her even then. I never liked any of these feminists who popped up demanding video games and comics be changed for them. I know people now compare Alyssa Mercante to Anita Sarkeesian, but she's probably closer in comparison to Lee Alexander. Well, they're all miserable cunts, So this article starts, I often say I'm a video game culture writer, but lately I don't know exactly what that means. Game culture, as we know it, is kind of embarrassing. It's not even culture. It's buying things, spackling over memes and in-jokes repeatedly, and it's getting mad on the internet. Mad on the internet is because of people like Lee Alexander, deciding for men what they can and can't enjoy in their hobbies, actively trying to destroy our spaces, and then acting like the victim for causing trouble. They don't know how to dress or behave. Television cameras pan across these listless cues and often catch the expressions of people who don't quite know why they themselves are standing there. I hate that line. That's an awkwardly written sentence. But anyway, this is communist cope. For them, people tired, bored of waiting while standing in line for some kind of event are people who don't quite know why they themselves are standing there. Ugh. It's bullshit. People know why they're there. But she wants to paint these people as zombies, consumer zombies. And the thing is, if she doesn't like video games, fine. But why does this bitch think her opinion matters? Why does she think she has the right to treat people like ratsies because they play games and buy shit and want to attend marketing events to see what new games are coming out? They don't know how to dress or behave. What does this have to do with her? Behave how? This is literally nerd culture. So if you have socially awkward people in a room together, okay. They're not hurting anybody. Who gives a shit? This is kind of that whole Mean Girls thing the artist formerly known as your boy Zach, before he turned it to Nerd Ed's newsstand. This is the kind of thing he used to talk about, this whole Mean Girls thing. And what's funny about it, there's this sense where you have these women in these male spaces, and they're acting like they get to decide who should be a part of it or not.
Please.
It's insane because the Mean Girls are a part of another scene. What the fuck are they doing acting like they're an authority on what geeks and gamers are doing? If Lee Alexander is so cool, go be cool somewhere else.
Look at the fish in his shoes. Girl, he must be a rock star.
The brother's walking on an aquarium. Hey, brother, do you get nosebleeds way up there?
Maybe it's his dinner.
No, man.
Say, brother, you been shopping at the Goodwill?
The brother's an endangered species.
He looks like a clown.
Games culture is a petri dish of people who know so little about how human social interaction and professional life works that they concoct online wars about social justice or game journalism ethics, straight-faced, and cause genuine human consequences.
Sure.
Sure, Jan.
This is the culture war. The culture war is people, particularly women, invading male spaces, attacking the men and their interests in this space, pretending that because they're women, they're somehow an authority on what men should and shouldn't do, as if male hobbies are just mating rituals subject to female approval. Lee Alexander is literally one of the people who came into gaming to destroy it, and she's acting like it's gamers pushing back against her bullshit that's the problem. She's gaslighting the very gamers she openly disdains. Because of video games. Lately, I often find myself wondering what I'm even doing here.
Me too. Me too.
That's the problem. Everybody is wondering what you're doing here. We didn't concoct an online war. You being here, acting like society needs you on that wall, is the online war. Why is it supposed to matter that you don't like socially awkward, poorly dressed men playing video games and buying merch?
And I know I'm not alone. All of us should be better than this. You should be deeply questioning your life choices if this, and this, and this are the prominent public face your business presents to the rest of the world.
So she has these 3 links, but the only one still active is this one. Trolls drive Anita Sarkeesian out of her house to prove misogyny doesn't exist. Just because people hate Anita Sarkeesian doesn't mean they're misogynists. You can hate individual women and not hate all women. These people are so used to painting everyone with the same brush that they can only think in terms of good groups and bad groups. They hate all men, even their so-called allies. So men must hate all women too. She goes,
all of us should be better than this.
Better than what? She started the article complaining about gaming not being a culture because it's just men buying shit and waiting in line at marketing events and being poorly dressed and socially awkward. These people are there for themselves. They're not there for Lee Alexander's approval. But she's like, we should all be better than this, and posts links to articles. I'm sure all of them were how miserable bitches like Anita Sarkeesian got pushback for invading gaming and attacking men for liking things her ideology doesn't approve of. And another thing. A big problem with a lot of these stories is that they are so quick to lie about death threats and so quick to victimize themselves because people told them to fuck off. Funny how, for all of the whining and crying and self-victimization these assholes do, nothing ever actually happens to them. However, the targets of their harassment campaigns usually end up getting fired, leaving the internet, or dead. But they're the helpless victims.
This is what the rest of the world knows about your industry. This and headlines about billion-dollar war simulators or those junkies with the touchscreen candies. That's it. You should absolutely be better than this.
This is unhinged. Again, nobody asked this bitch, or Anita Sarkeesian, to get involved in gaming and demand changes be made to fit their feminist ideology. Of course, people are going to tell them to fuck off. That's not a reflection on the gaming industry. Nobody cares what gaming is known for. It's a hobby. It doesn't need the normies' approval. As if normies even care about people playing COD or Candy Crush or Angry Birds or whatever phone games women were playing at the time. In fact, the more the normies got involved, the worse things got in gaming. Because people like this piece of shit decided it was her job to clean it up.
You don't want to be divisive? Who's being divided? Except for people who are okay with an infantilized cultural desert of shitty behavior and people who aren't. What is there to debate? Right. Let's say it's a vocal minority that's not representative of most people. Most people, from indies to industry leaders, are mortified.
Who cares, pearl-clutching pricks?
Furious. Disheartened at the direction industry conversation has taken in the past few weeks.
So, feminists and activists who hate men started attacking a male hobby. Then when the men in the hobby push back, they get accused of misogyny. Even though this all started because of women who hate men. And since this is such a weak, small-minded industry, these women and activist journals were allowed to get away with attacking the industry and the industry's customer base.
Well, there it is. Talk.
It's not like there are reputable outlets publishing national articles in favor of the trolls' side. Don't give press to the harassers. Don't blame an entire industry for a few bad apples. Yet, disclaiming liability is clearly no help. Game websites with huge community hubs whose fans are often associated with blunt Twitter hate mobs sort of shrug. They say things like, we delete the really bad stuff. What else can we do? And those people don't represent our community. But actually, those people do represent your community. That's what your community is known for, whether you like it or not.
Leftist activists love to say they don't engage in respectability politics, but that's literally what this is all about. These women pearl-clutched and moral panicked over how men behave in male spaces, how men who push back against people shitting on them and their hobby and just call us trolls. We're trolls for caring about our hobby and not wanting assholes who have nothing to do with it demanding it be changed and getting away with acting like victims because the men don't want it to change just to appease a gaggle of bitches that have nothing to do with gaming. And it got to the point in 2015 that this clown thinks she can lecture the gaming industry because she's anti-capitalist.
When you decline to create or to curate a culture in your spaces, you're responsible for what spawns in the vacuum. That's what's been happening to games.
No. Games got popular, and then dipshits like this came along to demand it be changed to appease her political agenda and worldview. This bullshit about
when you decline to create or to curate a culture in your spaces.
Hey, she cooking, y'all.
I'ma be on the next lap. I'ma be rocking over that bass trap. I'ma be chilling with my motherfucker crew. I'ma be making all them does you wanna do.
Where does this bitch get off? Who died and made her the arbiter of what gaming is supposed to be?
The fuck you care?
Oh my goodness.
So I just left the tire shop because I had to get a tire replaced. Obviously, I had a flat tire.
Just by the title of this video, entitlement coming in 3, 2, 1.
And as I'm getting out of my car to hand it over to the folks, there's 2 seats, 2 like folding chairs sitting under an umbrella, both occupied by grown men. And as I'm getting out of my car, one of the guys looks over at me, looks at my car, and I'm thinking he's about to offer me his seat.
And there you have it, only 10 seconds later. Ladies, why do y'all feel so entitled to what people already have? Y'all do this with men in every facet of life. It's not just with giving up seats. Y'all literally walk around thinking just because I am a woman, I am entitled to things. A creator by the name of the Black Shawn Michaels once said, ladies, what is something that is socially acceptable that men can require from women? Because women have a laundry list of what they think men should be or what they should be doing. But what is it that men can actually say in return?
You're goddamn right.
That's not super surprising, actually. While video games themselves were discovered by strange, bright outcast pioneers, they thought arcades would make pub games more fun, or that MUDs, I can't think of what that is, would make for amazing cross-cultural meeting spaces. The commercial arm of the form sprung up from marketing high-end tech products to early adopters. You know, young white dudes with disposable income who like to get stuff.
She's obsessed with this weird framing about young white men buying stuff, as if women don't buy shit.
Suddenly, a generation of lonely basement kids had marketers whispering in their ears that they were the most important commercial demographic of all time.
Again, what is this bitch talking about? What is her problem? So, studios and devs are selling their products to their customer base, and this asshole is acting like it's some kind of initiation into the Third Reich or something.
Suddenly, they started wearing shiny blouses and pinning bikini babes onto everything they made. Started making games that sold the promise of high-octane masculinity to kids just like them. By the turn of the millennium, those were games' only main cultural signposts. Have money, have women, get a gun, and then a bigger gun. Be an outcast. Celebrate that. Defeat anyone who threatens you. You don't need cultural references. You don't need anything but gaming.
None of that is true. She's literally just making shit up to demonize games and gamers. If you like games, here's a game. That's it. You like hot chicks? Here's a hot chick advertising our game. Enjoy. So, she wrote this in 2014. I'm not finished with this article yet. It's ridiculously long, but it's wild that people in the industry took this shit seriously and drove the industry into a ditch, listening to bitches like this tell them that selling to their customer base is wrong. That their customer base is wrong for wanting to buy games and merch. And that male spaces need to be turned into something feminists approve of, even though nobody asked for feminists' input into gaming.
Public conversation was led by a games press whose role was primarily to tell people what to buy.
She's fucking obsessed with this.
To score products competitively against one another. To gleefully fuel the team sports atmosphere around creators and companies. It makes a strange sort of sense that video games at that time would become scapegoats for moral panic, for atrocities committed by young white teen boys in hyper-capitalist America. She's obsessed. Something's wrong with this person. Not that the games themselves had anything to do with tragedies, but they had an anxiety in common, an amorphous cultural shape that was dark and loud on the outside, hollow in the inside. Reading this is like having someone take a shit in your brains. She's not talking about gaming. She's mad that people buy games. She's mad at the industry for selling games. She's mad at capitalism and men and acting like she has a right to speak out against it without pushback. Yet in 2014, the industry has changed. We still think angry young men are the primary demographic for commercial video games. Yet average software revenues from the commercial space have contracted massively year on year, with only a few sterling brands enjoying predictable success. These women have been insisting for years upon years that the audience for these male hobbies aren't actually the audience for it, while spending the bulk of their argument attacking and shitting on that audience. It's clear that most of the people who drove those revenues in the past have grown up, either out of games or into more fertile spaces, where small and diverse titles can flourish, where communities can quickly spring up around creativity, self-expression, and mutual support, rather than consumerism. She's insane. This has nothing to do with gaming. There are new audiences and new creators alike there. Traditional gaming is sloughing off, culturally and economically, like the carapace of a bug.
Gives us the right to say what we want.
So really,
Shut when you think about it.
up!
This entire article is gaming isn't an industry. Gaming is a safe space for people who hate games and gamers. And the industry needs to do a better job of getting rid of its customer base so that small indie games made by the LGBTQ and feminists can thrive. This is hard for people who drink the Kool-Aid about how their identity depends on the aging cultural signposts of a rapidly evolving, increasingly broad and complex medium. This from someone who no doubt believes that a person's identity, racial or gender, is the most important thing about them. It's hard for them to hear they don't own anything anymore, that they aren't the world's most specialist consumer demographic, that they have to share. This is what's so crazy about this article, about this whole insane stance. These narcissists are not asking to share. They are demanding that everything gets changed to suit them and their agenda. Like I keep saying, gamers don't have a problem with Dustborn or Concord existing. We'll make fun of it, but we don't demand they not be made. But pieces of shit like Lee Alexander don't want games like Stellar Blade or Wuchang Fallen Feathers or Black Myth Wukong to exist. She talks about owning and sharing, but that's their problem. They can't share because they don't actually care about games. If game devs said today that they're no longer going to make games anymore, Lee Alexander wouldn't give two shits. She'd make some BS article about how it's a shame the industry destroyed itself chasing their actual customer base, the young white dudes. But she wouldn't care if gaming no longer existed. If someone were to say to her, pick, you get to have a gaming industry that allows marginalized groups to make their own games for their niche audiences, but you still have to have AAA games for straight white males. They still get to exist and they get to cater to their own customer base. They both get to exist at the same time. That or no games at all. Which would you pick? Lee Alexander would pick no games at all. We also have to scrutinize closely the baffling, stubborn silence of many content creators amid these scandals, or the fact lots of stubborn, myopic internet comments happen on business and industry sites. This is hard for old school developers who are being made redundant, both culturally and literally, in their unwillingness to address new audiences or reference points outside of blockbuster movies and comic books as their traditional domain falls into the sea around them. Things have gotten so bad in the Western gaming industry because nobody at the top told these assholes to go fuck themselves. None of this shit has anything to do with gaming. Of course it's hard. It's probably intense, painful stuff for some young kids and some older men. It's not up to this sociopath to decide what gamers are supposed to put up with. It's not up to her to tell gamers to get over having assholes like her control our hobby. But it's unstoppable. A new generation of fans and creators is finally aiming to instate a healthy cultural vocabulary. A language of community that was missing in the days of, quote, gamer pride. When has anyone ever said gamer pride? And special interest groups led by a product guide approach to conversation with a single presumed demographic. This means that over just the last few years, writing on games focuses on personal experiences and independent creators. not approval-hungry obeisance to the demands of powerful corporations. It's not about being a reviewer anymore. That's a huge part of the problem. It's not about telling people what to buy. It's about providing spaces for people to discuss what and whom they support. This is the epitome of you don't hate game journals enough. These straw man game journalism ethics conversations people have been having are largely the domain of a prior age, when all we did was negotiate ad deals and review scores and scrape to be called reporters because we had the same powerlessness complex as our audience had. This weird thing she keeps doing where she keeps demonizing the audience for wanting things the way that they like them, for wanting to play fantasy games that are actually about fantasy and not like orcs and trolls being baristas at a Starbucks or something. She keeps making it about there's something gamers having this sort of inferiority complex and that's why they play games. And the kind of games they want to play is tied to how they feel when ironically, it's all these feminists and activists who keep pushing for representation and people want to see themselves in games. They're the ones who made it about having powerlessness, not the people who just enjoy playing these games. Now, part of a writer's job in a creative human medium is to help curate a creative community and an inclusive culture. And a lack of commitment to that just looks out of step. Like a partial compromise with the howling trolls who've latched onto ethics as the latest flag in their onslaught against evolution and inclusion. Again, nobody said you couldn't have your gay games or your trans games or your feminist games. We just don't want you turning our games into platforms for your political agenda. If you want to make a samurai game starring a black samurai, go ahead. But don't take 10 years or more to finally give players an Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan, only to make the main protagonist a black guy and a female ninja. Gaming is big enough to include your bullshit, but you don't want inclusion. You want to take over the space completely, and then act like you're making it better, and anyone who complains is just an uncultured bigot who is standing in the way of progress. Developers and writers alike want games about more things and games by more people. We want, and we are getting, and will keep getting, tragic comedy. Yeah, they're definitely getting tragic comedy. Vignette, musicals, dream worlds, family tales, ethnographies, abstract art. We will get this because we're creating culture now.
Mrs. Palmer, there are things dark and heinous in this world.
No, you're just forcing big IPs to include all the shit you know nobody wants, which is why you don't focus on original games with all of this shit. It has to be established properties because you want to destroy male spaces, not create culture. We are creating culture now. We are refusing to let anyone feel prohibited from participating. Except for straight men, Chinese companies that don't put black people in Chinese fantasy stories, and Korean companies who create sexy female protagonists. Gamer isn't just a dated demographic label that most people increasingly prefer not to use. She put a link here, but I didn't check it because I don't care what activists think of the term gamer. Gamers are over. That's why they're so mad. No, it's because some asshole nobody invited stomped in and started telling men that there was something wrong with our hobbies and us. And if we have a problem with them sticking their nose in our business, we're the ones in the wrong. And they keep framing it as they're mad, they're angry, when no, we're aggressively defending our space. And half the time, most of the time, we're just making fun of y'all. These obtuse shit-slingers, these wailing hyper-consumers, these childish internet arguers, they are not my audience. This is not your hobby. Nobody gives a shit what you think about it. They don't have to be yours. There is no side to be on. There is no debate to be had.
Right.
Fascists. These are the fascists. They're taking over our space because what? They don't approve? Nobody is stopping these shitheads from making their own games. But that's not what they want. They want to take away what we like about our games. There is what's past, and there is what's now. There is the role you choose to play and what's ahead.
And scene.
We know everything, thanks.
And you know nothing? It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. She'd have understood.
We've got all that power. But there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
Just let it go. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken your...
Now, after I finished reading this, I had to look Lee Alexander up because I remember her name, but I couldn't remember how she looked. In my head, I was picturing another activist writer, Lori Penny. But when I looked up Lee Alexander, this was one of the first things to pop up in the search results. Lee Alexander, Gamers Are Over article writer says, I didn't join the game industry because I think games are awesome. I did it because I think they should be better. This is the mentality that has destroyed Star Wars as a franchise, destroyed the MCU, comics, all of these game studios being shut down, Hollywood completely lost in the sauce. When Lee Alexander says she joined the gaming industry because she thinks games should be better, she's not talking about the games. She's talking about her feminist agenda, how she and her other feminists who invaded the space are creating a culture. But really, all they've done is drive a wedge between people. They created a clique that eats their own if anyone steps even a little bit out of line. Thanks to them, people are sick of the LGBTQ, sick of trans people, sick of all the groups they claim to represent, and sick of the industry they were supposed to make better by trying to drive out the very people the industry needs in order to survive. Hey, stupid. If gamers are over, then gaming is over.